Welcome back, Game to Love podcast. JG, Ben, we're here this week with a guy from Tweener Head. Another YouTube channel is Philip Fama.
Hi guys.
How's it going, man?
I'm fantastic. Can't complain. I'm glad to be here, share a beer with you guys, and just have some fun.
Cheers.
Why not?
Indeed. In this time of COVID-19, I feel this is the best time for all of us just to collaborate together and just get the views of like-minded people like ourselves.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I saw your channel on Twitter. So originally I come across you on Twitter. So I thought, let's have a look what this guy's been up to. I looked on your Twitter, on your YouTube. If you don't know already, guys, just check out his YouTube channel. I'll put it in the description, and you'll be able to check out some of his videos. And it's actually really interesting stuff. Like this guy, he goes around, he goes to different tournaments, he plays a bit of tennis himself, he does vlogs, he does a bit of everything. He's a bit like us, trying to do like a fun tennis channel. Do you have anything else lined up with the recent coming up, or?
No, if I'm going to be honest with you, my whole schedule's been disrupted by this pandemic, and it was funny because I had a flight scheduled to go to Houston for the clay court championships on Saturday, and I got a text from United saying your flight's ready to check in, and I went nope, and I just said no, I'm just going to stay in my house.
Yeah, sounds safer.
It sounds very safe.
Yeah. Is there going to be any tennis players there, do you reckon? But people,
everything's been cancelled.
I know, but wasn't there? I saw recently that you went to Indian Wells, and there was a few players that were already there. That
everyone was there.
Yeah, and then it was cancelled, and there's just three courts left for people just to practice on, I guess.
Yeah, all the courts become practice courts. People would just play in there, just hitting practice, and I think was there fans still there watching, or were they banned completely?
So what had happened was there's the challenger that happens right before it for men and women. So women's 125K and the men's, I think, 100 or 125K as well. And that tournament was happening, and then some of the bigger names started to roll in later in the week to kind of warm up for the tournament while the challenger was still going on. And this Tennis Paradise is actually a real club and has over 700 members. So they would have members playing in the morning, and then they would have the players go on probably around 12, maybe 11 after the members play. And then later in the week, they had the email and the announcement saying that ball kids will be wearing gloves. No one's supposed to touch the towel to kind of prevent the possibility of this going around. And then literally not even 12 hours before the tournament was going to start, they cancel it. And I was out to dinner with some friends, and they got the email, and it was kind of like, okay, now what? And everyone was kind of just starstruck from there.
Yeah. And then I think that sort of like cued a lot of other tournaments to start getting cancelled. Then we saw, I think after that, the French Open is being moved to September, like 6 days after the US Open, in line with where the Laver Cup would be.
Yeah.
And then recently, we've just seen the news that Wimbledon's been cancelled, and obviously all the clay court tournaments in between that, Monte Carlo, all of them, they're all been cancelled as well. So, like you say, there's no tennis to be played, there's no tennis to watch. It's a time now where we've got Zoom.
That's it. That's all we got.
That's not it, man. And that's
all we got.
Tennis, but apart from talking tennis, there's not much more we can do.
No, seriously, there isn't. And I think it was crazy because when they had after Indian Wells was announced canceled, they still planned to play the Phoenix Challenger, which was basically a small 250 as well, because the highest ranked player I think was Millman, and the cutoff was 150 in the world for the men. And they were going to move the whole Tennis Channel crew down to there from Indian Wells to kind of hopefully play another tournament.
Wow.
And as soon as Indian Wells started getting canceled, everything started tumbling, and then Phoenix got canceled, and then Miami, and everything kind of just went downhill from there.
I think it's the right decision. As much as I hate it, it's the right thing to do. Like, they've got to do it. The nature of tennis with the way tennis is, like there's people from all over the world all coming together to different venues across the world. So it's like the worst possible thing when there's a pandemic. It's the worst possible thing to spread the virus.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
One
I
of the
saw,
most-
I'm not sure who it was. There was someone saying, one of the pro players saying that they feel that tennis is going to be the last sport that we're going to see resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's true? Or?
Last to resume.
I think they're
Maybe-
based on the
I
fact
could
that because
see
of
it.
people going all over, like it's the way it's going to
I
take
could see
over
it.
most sports.
I could see it because from what I've heard around at Indian Wells is a time where a lot of people get sick. Like a stomach bug goes around, people get colds, people get flus because you have everyone. That's like the first biggest tournament and you have everyone coming from around the world. So it had to be. And I think during the final or semifinals of the Challenger at Indian Wells, there were still big crowds and there were small hallways to like go up the stands.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, if they think just giving ball kids gloves and players just to touch their own towels is the right idea to do, they're not doing enough if you still have massive amounts of people walking around, standing next to each other.
Sat in the stands right next to each other, like
In the
everybody
heat, too?
Yeah, man.
Exactly. So there was no way to fully
What did they say? It
get
lives
it
on
together.
different like surfaces. People touching handrails, people touching door handles, people
Exactly.
touching everything. It just lives on it for days, apparently. So, it's
So
just,
why would we do that?
yeah, it's just asking for trouble. But that tournament you were saying, the one that was before, it was just sort of like the Challenger Indian Wells was the one that actually did take place. There was like actually some really good tennis in that tournament, which was like really exciting leading up to the actual
was.
main Indian Wells. We had that guy I know that we briefly spoke about before we came on air, which was Brandon Nakashima, guy we've been constantly promoting over the past, since we started the podcast, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just turns out, you've had the pleasure of speaking to the guy. Can you tell us what that was like? Because he's a rising star.
He's a quiet kid, but the kid has the tennis IQ of any big name that you can think of. When I met him in Dallas, he was able to mix up his shots in the way he was able to kind of have a game that suited everyone, that could beat anyone, that could be consistent enough. And while he looks more relaxed while playing, he was still able to kind of switch up everything and still play to beat these guys. He definitely needs more high-end experience, but that at 18 years old and the kid's 6'2", 6'3", like the kid's already there. So, and he's already in the top 250.
I thought what was really promising was that, like we said as well, he played Delray Beach, wasn't it? Was it the week before or a couple of weeks prior?
Probably 2 weeks before, I think.
And then he beat Vesely, he'd just won an ATP event himself, and then beat Norrie, and then took a set off Nishioka, who is another player that we just constantly going on about. Amazing player.
I think Nishioka was a step too far for him, but it just shows like how far he's come. Like to be able to beat Norrie and some of the shots he played in that game. I remember seeing the highlight reel. I didn't actually watch the game.
Yeah.
It was incredible. The guy, he had some amazing shots, and it just shows like at 18.
The half volley one at the net.
Yeah.
Oh God, that was the shot of the tournament by far.
Yeah,
just
it
unbelievable.
It really does make me wonder, like, how far can this kid go? Obviously, like for me, he's young. I've never seen him off a surface of hard. I think he's only ever played on hard from my recollection. I've never seen him playing any other surface.
I agree with you. He hasn't. I don't think he has played anything but hard.
No, so I think it would have been interesting. Say if Wimbledon was to go ahead, if he was able to get a wild card into it or maybe qualify.
Yeah.
See how he would fare on sort of grass, because I think he's got the game to be able to play on that. And I think it would have been extremely exciting to see how he fared, to be honest.
I agree. I think he definitely had it, and he was even up in the second set in Delray against Nishioka. He's been up against some of these big names, and while he's gotten far into tournaments, there's just something there that just needs to close, because he was up in the tiebreaker against Nishioka too, and he loses. Oh, he was. I think I remember. I think he was up 5-2 in the second set tiebreaker, loses 7-5.
Oh wow.
And so he's there. He's definitely there. He just needs maybe just another little push.
Yeah, no, we've been watching a lot of him. Like,
Yeah.
he's been someone on our radar. Like, we watch a lot of his games in terms of, like, because he's on a very good run. Like, he's on the Challenger Tour. He was got in a very successful one of beating everyone who was playing.
Yeah.
And funny enough, there's another player what springs to mind when I talk about that sort of level and that tour. And I don't know if you know who he is. It's JJ Wolf.
Yeah, JJ. He's signed with. I always think, because he played at Ohio State. He was regarded as one of the top college players before going pro.
Okay.
Unbelievable. His run of form at the back end of last year or just the beginning of this year. I think he'd won, was it about 12, 13 straight matches?
Yeah, he won 2 straight challenger titles.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
it was actually a bit disappointing because I think he just missed out on the Australian Open qualifying. He got to the final.
I think he did too.
Went out. And I feel like, I don't know, we love up-and-coming players. Like, we did mention before as we was talking, like, we watch a lot of the Challenger Tour. We like watching, like, the young players coming through. And we feel like he's one to really stay and, like, push on. It would have been really exciting to see him in a climate playing against, like, the top ATP players, to see how he would fare.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And JJ definitely had raw power playing when I first saw him in Cleveland. I did a post-match interview with him. Like, kid's got unbelievable raw talent. He just needs a couple more things to make him that elite player. And have you seen him with his mullet yet, or no?
No.
I'm not sure if I've seen it. I think maybe on Flash Scores there's some. He's got.
Definitely. You need to look at when he was playing for Ohio State when he had the mullet. I think you guys would die at that photo.
All right, yeah, no, we'll get it up for sure. We'll have a look.
I watched one of his matches, which was, I'll see if I see the date. I think it was mid-February, which was against another rising sort of youngster from Austria. Is this I saw you had actually interviewed him. Was it Rodionov?
Yeah. He won Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah. Another amazing, like, up and coming player as well. Like, this is another player that's just sort of been on the radar over the past, like, year we've been watching tennis.
20-year-old from Austria. And yeah, he's another one that kind of just has been there, but he's been able to kind of develop well this year, I think, because he won 2 challengers, I think, this year too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had some really good run of form. I think he beat in the final. Who was he beating? Fikovic, I think it says here. Yeah,
he beat hard.
Let me see. I think that was in.
He beat Kudla in Dallas.
Yeah. That was.
Yeah, the only thing I remember off the top of my head, like recently, which was a bit of a disappointment. Like, I know he's been on a brilliant run. That is, he lost to Zapata Morales.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what tournament that was in, but that was the most. Like, I must admit, like, being in
Kazakhstan,
really
that one.
Tennis, like Kazakhstan. That's right. That was the last sort of event I can actually remember. It seems like about 3 years ago.
Everything seems everything seems like last year, but we're already in April in 2020, and everyone's kind of already lost it.
Like, I keep thinking about Dubai as well, and like Doha and tournaments like that. The clay court swing, there was a bit of like Cordoba. Like, for me, that seems like an eternity ago. But that's like the last tennis we saw.
Yeah. There's one thing that I think is going to be interesting is just to see, because all these players that we had going into this break in such good form, are they going to come back out in the same form, or is it just it's going to completely throw it all, like it's going to all up in the air again? Like Djokovic was undefeated.
Different levels, and we know what it's like. But when you don't play tennis, you mentioned it earlier, Philip. If you don't play tennis for a bit, it's very difficult to get back into the swing of things and get the rhythm back. These, obviously, granted, are a lot better than what we are. Well, me and Ben definitely. And maybe you're more up there. But like, it's going to take them a while to get back to that, right?
The rhythm is going to be insane. Like, it's going to look like they playing like a tournament for the first time in their lives once they come back to it. I can't imagine trying to play a pro level tournament for actual money immediately after this is over.
That's what we said. Imagine that. We said it's probably come at the best time for Federer. He's injured. He's probably going to come back. He can probably just step back onto a court and wipe the floor with most people anyway. So this will probably benefit him the most out of everybody.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I feel like if Wimbledon wants to go to have taken place. Obviously, it's not now. Like, we know that this pandemic's just growing, but I feel like the Wimbledon was Rogers for the taking.
What did you think of the French moving? Like, not announcing anything? What do you think of it just completely just like, gone? Like, we're moving it here, no questions.
I think it's very arrogant of the French organisers to be doing it, but I can kind of understand why they did it. At the end of the day, they sort of foreshadowed what was going to be happening, and they thought, okay, a lot of these events are going to be cancelled. How about we pick a random date in a future date, and let's hope that in September it's more clear and we're able to play the tournament. It's them just being a bit selfish and thinking, oh, I don't really care. I disregard the ATP. I disregard what the players think. I disregard about what all the other tennis tournaments are saying. We're going to have the tournament, and we're putting it in September. And that's what happened, to be honest. I don't think it's the right thing to do. And if I'm honest, I'm not even sure. I don't think it's still going to be going ahead, to be honest.
What do you think, Philip, on the ATP's response to them doing it? Is they said that they might remove all the points from the tournament.
I didn't even hear that.
Yeah, they said for this year and next year as a punishment.
Do you want a professional answer or do you want a real answer?
I know, like, is anyone going to be playing the French Open?
First, I want Rafa's answer. What would Rafa say?
He'll still play it.
Rafa would still play it no matter what, just to get another trophy.
Him and Team would be battling it out between them, I think.
I just think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous, and I think going back to your statement of it being arrogant, I completely agree. With no consulting of anyone, with no idea of, all right, here are the other tournaments. Let's not plan around the smaller tournaments. Let's plan around two big tournaments that take the top 20 players from the men's side for 3 straight weeks.
Yeah,
US Open, Laver Cup.
Yeah.
And let's have them choose between each one. And it's I said this with a player that I was talking to last week. I just think the word for it, I would say, was dumb, because there's no other way to put it. There's no, like, how do you move a Grand Slam? How do you move a Grand Slam?
I think it's all just financial, isn't it? They're probably thinking we're going to be losing so much money out of ticket sales, and at least if they were able to get it running, even if it didn't do as that well, they'd still cover some losses that they probably are facing. But everyone's facing these same things. Why should they be benefiting when everybody else has to suffer?
Or just do what Wimbledon did and cancel it.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Like, just save the money, just take the loss, and just move on.
Yeah, they weren't prepared to, by the looks of. There must be something that we don't know going on behind the scenes, that they're trying to, like, make ends meet or something. We don't know.
It's terrifying to know that there's that much going on behind the scenes that no one knows about.
Yeah, that's always been the case, and it always will be.
I think it's still shocking that everyone only finds out stuff on Twitter as well. They don't even. Apparently, Wimbledon were the only tournament so far that actually let everybody know well in advance that they weren't needing to travel to London for the event.
Really?
Yeah. Everybody else, when they, like, wasn't it Indian Wells? They all found out on Twitter first. Like,
all the players were finding out as the announcement was posted to Twitter. Wimbledon taken a high ground on it all. Wimbledon being the pinnacle of tennis, they've taken the high ground, and they've literally said, "Oh yeah, we're going to be telling the players first, and then we're going to cancel the tournament." The right way to do it, in my opinion.
The pinnacle of professionalism that is Wimbledon.
We've been getting a lot of crap for this as well.
Really?
Yeah, there was a few people saying that we're disrespecting the other Grand Slams by calling Wimbledon it's sort of the home of tennis, really, for, like, a lot of people.
I think for that, I wouldn't say you're not disrespecting anyone. I think it's just the right way to do. Australia, we had the bushfire incident, and I don't think they ran that properly. I think US Open is so far down the line that no one knows what's going to happen to it. And I think the only thing that we saw from being an unprofessional state is the French Open. And the way Wimbledon did it was just, I think, the proper way that everyone went about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Proud of our home, even though we're so super sad that it's not going ahead, because it was the one we were looking forward to the most, and we were hoping it might just all finish and then we could squeeze in Wimbledon and we'd get to go. But I'm
No
glad that
chance.
they've taken the right decision, really, because fair play to them. They're actually being professional about it, which is
They
good
have
to
Yeah,
to.
see.
we were looking to be more like you, Philip, and do like vlogs.
Yeah, exactly.
This was the year of our podcast. Game to Love started in 2020, started in January, not been around for very long. And we was hoping to this is our year of tennis. And what happens is there's a worldwide pandemic.
We'd nearly booked Italy, didn't we? We nearly booked a challenger in Italy. Yeah, that would have been the worst.
Yeah, we were going to go to Northern Italy for a challenger. We had it all booked out on Sky Scanner.
I know. Luckily, we didn't actually buy those tickets because
Which challenger was it?
it was near Pescara. It was what was the name of it? Can't remember. But yeah, it was just close to Pescara Airport. It was just on the coast. I think it was is it on the east coast? I think. But yeah, it was. I think quite a few decent players around the top 100 were normally playing in there.
I'll let you know the name.
But yeah, have a look. I think who won it last year? It was Kyrgios, I think, won it last year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Roberto Kyrgios?
I believe so, yeah.
I remember earlier this year, too, when they announced, I don't know if you guys heard about this, is the challenger in Northern Italy where they canceled the final due to COVID, and they split the finalist fee and split the points for making the finals.
Saw that, yeah.
What'd you think of that? Because I thought that was kind of crazy.
I don't know. I think that they did the best thing that they could. And if they had to cancel, they have to cancel. But at least they didn't just ruin it for everybody. They actually went, fair enough, we'll split it.
Was this the Bergamo challenger?
The one they canceled the final.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, and that was against I remember this. Marchenko Kukard, is it? Kukard?
I can't even remember, to be honest.
Yeah, the only reason I know is because I was following the whole tournament. Me and Ben was playing a game.
Really?
We can go, we were seeing we basically had this game what we play at work, just predicting who's going to win each game in the tournament. And I was riding this guy Enzo Kukard. I don't know if you know who he is.
No.
Yeah, he's a French guy.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, I was completely on this guy every time, and he managed to get to the final. That's how I know. It's a bit of a random stat. I shouldn't know that. I didn't know that Marchenko.
It's fun facts that are very random.
Yeah,
yeah, it's random.
There's tons of random facts about really, really low-ranked players that we've got.
I heard one of you picked Kenin to win.
Who?
I heard one of you picked Kenin to win the Australian Open.
Yeah, thank you.
Please talk me through your thought process with that.
Well, we've been following her on on the whole tour from the season before. She'd been one which was always popping up and playing so well on hard court. And I was even saying to Jaron, I just sort of fancy she's beaten a lot of the top 5 players in other hard court not challenges, WTA events. I just thought, I don't know, I just quite fancy her as an outsider in this tournament. And it just turned out that she won it.
All right, fair game.
I know, yeah, but she just got the game. I think with the women's game, anyone can beat anyone on any given day, and that's the beauty of that. But she just had one of those tournaments where she played incredible with that tournament, and
relentless.
That one I used in that final against Muguruza when she had that. I think she was 3 break points down. I think on her own. Yeah, and she just hit 3 amazing winners one after the next. You're like, this is another level.
It was 5 winners. After that, she hit the 3 to get to Jews, and then she just went advantage thing as well. And then I think she carried it into the next game as well. It was incredible. She just found form when I feel like she's for a young girl. She's not really doesn't show much fear, and she's someone who's able to rise to occasions. She plays shots very cleverly. I think
she was down 4-2, love 40. I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and she came back in that set. I was just like, "You're kidding, right?"
I know.
It's crazy.
And as soon as she did that, the writing was on the wall. Then you just knew that
she knew.
Yeah, you wish you weren't going to lose it from there. But that Muguruza, after that first set, I was like, here we go. That pick's not looking so good. But yeah, she came back. I was super surprised, and she played so well.
Muguruza's good though. She's coming back to her form.
Yeah,
she tried to. She tried to at least this year.
Yeah, she's
yeah.
She's looking good though. I was surprised that she got to the final for some reason. I don't know. I didn't expect her to be there. But...
Not many people did because after, what is she, a 3-time or a 2-time Grand Slam champion? She won the French. She won Wimbledon.
I think she's 2 times.
I think it's just
double
Wimbledon
check.
and French Open.
She didn't win Wimbledon twice, right?
I need to double
As
check.
far as I know, I think it's just 1 and 1. But I'm not
Okay.
completely sure.
But after that, it was kind of like a Kerber story of where she just dropped off.
100%.
Like she didn't drop off as hard as Kerber. Like she dropped off harder than Kerber, but Kerber was still within the top 30, even when after she won her 3 slams.
Yeah, but Kerber's not really been competing of late. I don't know what she's doing. I'm not really sure what's happened there. But she, like you say, she was the world number 1 for a while, right?
I know, yeah.
And she was playing incredible tennis. She was winning a lot of things she was in. And then it seems to me like there's like a new breed of tennis coming through. Like you had Bianca Andreescu, Alison Risk started playing some brilliant tennis. And then you've got like the young, like Coco Gauff coming through. And there's a lot of young women tennis players. Rybakina, another one I like. She's a really good player. Wins a lot. Winning recently as well. Started 2020 brilliantly. I think she's won more matches than anyone in 2020. So the women's tour is very exciting to watch. I just feel like Ben said earlier, it's very open in terms of like you enter a tournament and there's a lot of
You never know
who can win.
Well, that match in Dubai, that was that recent tournament there, and I thought, well, I was shocked a little bit because I didn't really know much about Ons Jabeur, but then when she came up against Halep, that match was epic. I've watched that whole match, and I just thought she was so unlucky. She had I think she had 1 match point at one point, and then just the tie, she bottled it, bottled it.
I think she could have done that.
She was just started hitting it in the middle of the net suddenly, and all of her shots just went to pot. And they're like, no, after such a good, amazing performance, like I didn't think that was probably the game of her life she was playing there against Halep. And the whole crowd was against her as well. They're all for Halep.
Was that a quarterfinal or was that the round of 16?
Yeah, I think it was quarterfinal. Yeah.
Okay. Because that was a good matchup for the Australian Open. I also liked Anisimova. Like no one talked about her after she did well at the French Open last year, and then Coco Gauff came into the scene, and kind of all the rest of the Americans took a back seat for someone that made the round of 16 for Wimbledon.
Yeah, she got spanked though recently, didn't she, by Serena? Was it? I think she came up against her in another tournament that was just after the Australian Open. She lost like 6-1, 6-1 or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, pretty harsh like that. But she's a very, very promising player. She's got like all the attributes, like you say.
It's freaky to see that kind of athleticism.
Yeah, I know. Very crazy. I know. Well, I think Coco Gauff, we did a little podcast on it recently just because we just think that she's, showing all the signs of being one of the greats she already won a WTA event in she was 15 already.
Yeah, she won Linz, I think, in Austria towards the end of last year.
Yep. Yeah. That's right.
Which is better than what, say, Serena Williams did in her breakthrough season, or even like looking back, like Steffi Graf as well.
Yeah.
We did like a little breakdown. If you've not checked it out, check out that video.
Of course.
But another thing I want to talk about on the subject of young players, I feel like a lot of the time recently on our channel, we've been dominated by the big three. We've been having this GOAT chat, and it's getting a bit repetitive. So I feel like a good thing to have. We've got Philip on here. He loves his tennis. He loves his young people in tennis. Not in a weird way, but.
Oh God!
I know. You're gonna get him into trouble. What are you doing?
Oh God!
But I've got a question for you anyway.
Go for it.
Aside from the top three, who do you think is the biggest threat to winning Grand Slams? Because I've seen them same names, the same time, over and over again. People come with a thing of saying Zverev, or you've got Thiem, or you've got Medvedev, or you've got Tsitsipas. There's a lot of players there kicking about. But or Felix even, another really young guy, do you feel like these guys can compete, will be winning a slam while the top three are still active and still playing?
Okay, I was waiting for the end of that because I wanted to know if the big three were still active or not. If the big three are still active, I think Rafa's going to win the French Open no matter what. I think the closest person we saw to that last year was Thiem, and Thiem has always been the Prince of Clay.
Yeah. Djokovic's not far away, though, as well.
Djokovic is not far away as well. And I think Medvedev was his breakout year as well. That was unbelievable to see last year. And I think we saw that at the U.S. Open and that entire summer swing.
Yeah.
for
was a brilliant final against Nadal, that one.
exactly.
Yeah,
Like he
incredible.
played. How many finals did he play that summer? He played what, 3 or 4? He won Cincinnati, final of Rogers,
Mate, I think
final of
it
U.S.
it
Open.
was crazy. It was crazy. The form Medvedev was in, I think it was unrivaled to a lot of
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
That was
He didn't
probably
really
the
quite do it in the slams. Obviously, US Open, he managed to get to the final, but aside from that, he didn't really do great in
It
the
tends to
slams.
have that weird January, February slump though each year. I don't know. The last 2 years he's not played well in Jan and Feb.
it's just
Very
a
odd.
slow start, but as long as you finish hard, like
Yeah.
and I think for those guys, it was a list. It was Zverev first, then it was Felix. No, then it was Tsitsipas, then it was Felix. It was those 3 to kind of do it team. And I think Jaron said it in the GOAT video you guys made. Team is up there in age. Like as well as how young these guys are, Team's what, mid-20s now?
26, I think.
26, I think.
26. Like he's not far off, but we've said that about Dimitrov too when he was in his prime. So
Yeah.
I think I compare it to that sense of the higher you go up, the more chance you might be able to win a slam, because look at Wawrinka. Wawrinka did it in his late 20s. He won 3 slams.
But then you see a little bit like what we discussed on a few other pods is team seems to have this, I don't know, the nerves creeping a little bit with him, and it's quite evident. We saw that he had the opportunity to take even 3rd place, and then he went out in the which tournament was it? The clay court, the ATP clay, when I can't remember which tournament it was. He
In
lost
Argentina.
a set to a wild card in the first round, and then he went out to, was it Mega?
Yeah,
No,
I think in that though, he still managed to come 3rd because of Federer's injury.
Okay.
It didn't really influence that much, but it's a good point you make. Like his ability in the big moments where the pressure's on him to achieve something. We've seen it in the Australian Open final against Djokovic. He's got an extra gear, which in his ability-wise, he's right up there, Dominic Thiem. I just feel like there's something missing with his mental edge to be able to get it over the line and remain at that level. And I feel like when he's in front, he's not very dangerous. He's more dangerous when he's behind. But that's just my verdict on it all. And I love him. I think he's an amazing player on all surfaces now. He used to be, like you say, the Prince of Clay, but he's shown that he's able to replicate that form on hard court. And I think this would have been a really exciting year to see how he progressed.
I think so too, because I remember the quarters or semifinals against Rafa at the U.S. Open 2 years ago, when he bageled Rafa, or he won 6-1 in the first set in less than like a half hour.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like no one expected that at all. He was up, and then it went to a 5th set. Like no one, like he's able to prove himself in so many ways. But I think some of these young guys like Tsitsipas, I'll take that example because of his one-hander. Like Tsitsipas is probably the next guy up right after Zverev, because Zverev seems to have lost his momentum. But Zverev also is still so young. We can't rule out any of these guys.
So if you had to like order these right now, like what would you do as who's your number 1 competitor? Sorry to push you on it, but I want to.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Like
I want people in the comments to be going for you, saying,
"All right, fair. All right." So like 1 to 5 for like 1 being the next person to win a slam and 5 being the least. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me pull up the rankings to see where they are right now, as frozen as they are. I would put Tsitsipas at 1, Thiem at 2, Medvedev at 3. Oh God, because there are so many more. You didn't mention Rublev, Kachanov, Shapo.
Yep.
Like there's so many others that you can pick from.
They could overtake those ones we've just been talking about.
Exactly. So
Rublev is won more titles in 2020 than any other player.
Okay, and then so I said Tsitsipas, Thiem, Medvedev, Demon Hour.
Yeah, that's another one.
And then
he's the dark horse, I think.
Yeah, he definitely
keep an eye
is.
on ADM. He's played incredible this year so far.
Kyrgios.
Kyrgios, if he applied himself, he would win, and he knows that, and we all know that.
I think
Nick,
he does it on purpose.
Nick, if you're watching this video, I'm so sorry. I know you'll probably text me about this later, but please do not roast me again.
Wait. You take Kyrgios? You can't just drop that on the podcast without explaining it. You're a Bible. You're gonna just bring that in normal conversation that you text people?
just name drop in there.
I'm just gonna leave it alone. Don't mention it.
Wait, 2 seconds. Roger? I'm live on a podcast, 2 minutes. Sorry, it's just Roger calling.
No, I'll just let you know that my 5th one is Zverev.
Okay.
So we have Tsitsipas, Team, Medvedev, Demon Hour, Zverev.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are my 5.
Mate, that's an incredible list.
Yeah, it's so hard, and I think this is, and I've heard arguments that this is also the weakest era in men's tennis because you have the big 3 still dominating at such a older age than most people, and it's not as competitive as the WTA. But
you can look at that 2 ways.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
In fact, I completely slam that down right now. I completely disagree. I think the ability, like below that, then 5 names you said there, I think they're incredible tennis players. However, I think the top 3 are the greatest 3 of all time. And I think the level they're playing at is that good. It doesn't matter how old they get. They've got a mental edge and an ability to be able, when they're on court, they're winners and they win. And it's like, it doesn't matter how good you are below them. It's going to take a big effort to be able to beat them. And not just that, don't get me wrong, you're able to see that what you see Tammy beat Nadal in the semi-finals, then you're always going to have to play one more of them. And if it's not, it'll be either Djokovic or Federer then. And then you've got to get past one of them. And I don't think anyone's been able to get past 2 of them. The only person you've seen do that is Stan Wawrinka. And that was in the US Open.
I think it's quite interesting because one name that always doesn't get brought up, probably because he's not really on the scene at the moment, is Andy Murray. And I think if these 3 players weren't in, he would probably be 20-time Grand Slam champion over the past. He probably would be.
It's like a whole nother argument.
Yeah, exactly. But he was probably the only player who's actually knocked anybody off, or those 3 off number 1. He was number 1 for a whole year a few years back. And he's the only one who's really toppled those big. And if he had kept his fitness and didn't have those injuries and had a slightly better mental edge. But he does. He's the only people he doesn't have the mental edge against is those 3.
He's like the British version of Andy Roddick. Like if Andy, but
you're right.
Roger beat Roddick in 4, 5, like Wimbledon finals.
Yeah.
Like in the same way that Murray was always the runner-up at, I think it was the U.S. Open or Aussie Open.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, yeah, exactly. It's, you never know. People, I think this was funny on Twitter that people started asking how Andy Roddick had such a good record against Novak, and he literally said retire early. I was just like, yeah. That's how you keep your record above 100.
Not as good as Kyrgios' record against Novak, though.
Very true.
It's very 100% last time I checked.
Yeah. So back on.
Are we going back to this?
Back to Kyrgios. What is your relationship with Kyrgios?
We met in Rome, and we just stayed in touch after that last year.
Sounds romantic.
Oh, thank you.
Met in Rome.
We had a candlelit dinner at the Coliseum.
Sounds amazing. What I'm actually interested about finding out on a serious note, because we saw that on one of your videos that you were actually knocking up with him at Indian Wells.
Yeah.
Was he giving you any? Was he testing you a little bit there? Was he hitting a few? Because we've seen him hit some of those forehand winners that are about 200 miles an hour past people. Was he throwing any of them at you?
It's crazy, and I don't think people understand how well he can change a ball's pace, because he can hit it as flat as he wants and then put so much spin on the ball at the same time the next shot that you can't find your rhythm. And his serve is as good as you think it is, too.
Looks dynamite.
He just takes one step in and just clocks it.
In that Australian Open, I think there was one game, wasn't there? He did just 4 aces, just.
Yeah, no, but his match against Kachanov was unbelievable. Like he was talking about it to his trainer while we were practicing. He's like, if I didn't win the 3rd or 4th set, he would have lost it.
Yeah, but that was one of the matches. Was hasn't even really been spoken about this year. Like considering all the things that have happened, and like even though we've had such few tennis, that match was probably we've only had one Grand Slam. He was the hometown guy, and just probably the most incredible match. Like 5 sets, and just that final was it his final? It was a tiebreak, wasn't it? It was
a tiebreaker in the fifth.
and then it was against Nadal. I think he just tried to do a second serve ace against Nadal at 5-all in the tiebreak.
Yeah, that sounds like him too.
Still,
yeah. For me at least, I think he's okay. This is gonna sound weird, but I think he might be the top 5 best ball strikers of all time in tennis.
I don't think that's that's weird at all. The way he hits the ball and the way I see some of his shots, like he's the man for the highlight reel. There's no one really you can make up. There's no one in tennis history, in my opinion, where you can put a highlight reel like Kyrgios is together. It's the most incredible reel you can see.
You can't.
Like I'm talking about entertainment factor. And
maybe Monfils can give him a little bit of a run for it, but
Monfils is good as well. Monfils is a good one.
I think they're 2 different styles of entertainment. Kyrgios has so much power and flair. Monfils, his athleticism alone.
Yeah.
Like the 2 different styles for me, like both make them the most entertaining.
I like Monfils has that sort of he erupts when the shots go in, whereas Kyrgios is more like, yeah, I know I can do it. Like I'll just show you. It's just swag on court. Like that's why people love Kyrgios. I don't think anybody ever argue with the fact that I've spoken to so many people like who big tennis fans or people who have played tennis, and they say that if he was the one person to apply himself, they reckon he would be the one to literally take on all of the top 3. And I don't think anyone would ever argue with that. I think he is literally at the top of his game. He can beat any of them, and you've seen what he can do against Rafa in the big tournaments. He can always take a set, and there's always just a small little mental side that just goes a little bit, which is just sad because we really want to see him beat Rafa at something. I know Jaron probably doesn't, but I had Kyrgios. He was my pick for Australian Open, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah.
It's because he was donating to charity for every ace that he said. I'm like, I'm going for
the motivation.
Yeah, I was like, I want him to do it for the Australian Fires, for everything. My actual selection was Djokovic, but I thought,
a bit boring.
I know it's too boring. That's why. If it had been Djokovic versus Kyrgios in the final,
hold on, Ben, you're clever.
He goes bold for women, but then just goes Djokovic for the damn pick.
It's so
that's
predictable.
no fun.
Well, I said Djokovic was probably going to win 3 of the 4 Grand Slams this year. That was my pick at the beginning of the year, but obviously it's not going to happen now. But it's open for debate. Maybe this US Open we're going to see a surprise winner. Maybe
the Australian Open, I had who did I have? Shapovalov. I went outside.
Wow.
First round.
First round.
Out. First round out. But yeah, that was sad.
It was him and Felix.
Yeah, Felix went out as well.
Felix went out as well. And on the women's side, too, Sloane Stephens, I think, bounced out of like 4 first rounds.
She had a terrible start.
I was like, what?
I know.
This is a US Open champion.
It was the same score she lost to by the same player the year before, right?
Was it?
Yeah, it was. It's the exact same. I believe it was that one, wasn't it?
That's crazy.
When she played, it was the exact same.
Zhang, wasn't it? Zhang?
Yeah. I think it was something like that, yeah.
She lost to Zhang the exact same way the year before.
Same round, same score.
Unreal. That's terrifying, too.
Yeah.
Like in 3 sets, I think she won the first set 6-4, and then she lost the next one. I'm not sure exactly, but she was the same way. It was crazy.
We'll fact check this after this.
Yeah, it's on the other podcast as well.
We've already done another podcast story. We fact checked that one already.
Okay, my fault.
Right. There's someone in the comments who'll do it for us, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, they'll tell me some score. They'll be like, "You're not fair." I'm like, I really don't know. I couldn't tell you the score of like a tournament ago.
Exactly. We can't be catering to everybody's needs, can we?
No, not at all.
We'll do it for time, Bet.
Wrap it up. Yeah. So we didn't get to much. Well, I was gonna make some selections, but I don't think no one needs to hear me ramble on about who I think.
They listen every week to you. We've got a celebrity guest on. We need to get more limelight on.
I'm a celebrity? There's no way in hell I'm a celebrity.
Definitely.
We got Big Phil on.
Yeah, that's it. I know we had the Slice on. Now we've got Phil. He's on. We've got anybody. Well, Kyrgios on next week. I heard.
Jesus, I'll let him know. I'll let him know.
Yeah, you can come on together if you want. We go fill up the fourth square of the video. We need a.
No, you'll just kick me off and just put your logo where my head is, and then just have Nick talk the entire time.
Just muted as a microphone.
I'll just be to Nick. Oh, Nick, I love you so much. Honestly, I'm willing you to win every single match. But anyway, I think we've done enough on this podcast. It's been a good one.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it, you guys watching. A big thank you to Philip for appearing on the podcast.
Yeah, much appreciated.
His channel was extremely exciting. If you've not checked it out already, go check it out. I'll put the link down below.
Tweener Head.
Tweener Head is the channel name. Philip Fama the name.
There you go.
So, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. And I guess we're out.
Yeah. See you next time.
See you next time. Peace.
Bye, guys.